haven't had any,
Create those agencies rest with the Board of Selectmen. They just have to interact with the public via a town meeting.
So we have to bring it up at have to have a town meeting to approve new committees, or I don't
interpret it that way. I interpret it as simply, it has to be brought up at a town meeting. And it's still the sole domain of the Board of Selectmen to
okay.
take
So do
action. Correct,
do we
Henry?
have to have a town meeting before we can, to bring it up before we can initiate it?
That's
I
what
think
this-
the way this is worded, it would require town meeting approval of the concept of creating the agency. If it was an agency for study of bees, then the town meeting would have to say, go ahead and do it. It would still be the selectmen that would likely decide who goes on it, how many people, how often they're appointed, et cetera. But the town meeting would say, yes, we should have that agency.
So it'd be a
Um,
vote.
Okay, that's clear. I just reread it and that seems very clear that that's what it indicates. Any questions from anybody? I'm in favor of this. Any concerns with this from anybody?
I guess I
Okay.
don't want to beat the dead horse, but 8.26 basically authorizes the Board of Selectmen to create agencies that are required to be created by statute. If there are agencies that aren't required by statute, the Board of Selectmen can only create them with town meeting approval.
Thank you for the
So-
clarification. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
so if the legislature passes a law saying every town has to have a, line striping committee, the selectmen can create it and appoint it. But if you decide without being told to do that by the legislature that you want to have a line striping committee, you need to have the town meeting sign off on it.
Okay.
is everyone good with that? Thank you for the explanation. Okay, let's move. I'm assuming with no dissent that it's a consensus that we're comfortable with this being stated this way.
Rick, this is Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Where exactly is this going? Because Henry was fading in and out and I'm not quite sure.
3.32, correct, Henry?
3.3 A2. Yes.
A2.
A2.
Mhm. If we jump back there, we can take a quick look at it.
Yeah, we're having a hard time hearing you when you turn away from
Okay.
the,
We can jump back to 3.3 A2 and then move on from there, and people can look at it one more time when they see what's at A2 now again.
3.3 A2. So right there, Linda.
Okay.
Got it?
If nobody has anything on any of the redlining, my next note is.
Yeah, we can't hear you again, Henry.
Okay.
You got to stay focused on the screen.
If there's no other concern with redlining, section 4.2E has a comment that we have to deal with.
What section was that? 4.2B?
4.2E.
Okay. I'm going past some of these, the underlined and redlined areas. Most of these, well, they were all just technical clarifications. I'm sorry, what section again? I was concentrating.
4.2E.
4.2.
Here we are. Okay, first selectman duties.
I would suggest we just remove this comment and make no change. It was reporting, Rich did, as to how police decisions were made.
Everyone comfortable with that? Okay, we're all good?
Yep.
Next up,
There's a pagination issue with page 16 that will be solved in the next.
yeah, we're missing, anytime you move away from the screen, we can't hear what you say.
He's
I
gone.
said there- I'm back. You're hearing me now better? I'm trying to get to, you can hear me better.
Yes.
That's great. That's
I
perfect.
think Henry has bandwidth issues too. You might want to try turning off your video. That might help. Because even when you're facing us, I think you're going in and out.
Well, I need to look at the screen, so I can't turn off the video. But I tried to turn up the microphone. And let me just do that one more time.
Henry, turning off your camera will not turn off your screen. It just means we won't see you.
Okay, there we go.
Okay,
I also turned up the microphone. So if page 16 has a pagination problem, the next one to look at though is 6.2.
6.2.
okay. That'll get fixed. 6.2 is the minority representation.
We have the comment here as to whether we're going to change this or not. We've had a long discussion on it. So I defer to whatever the commission wishes to decide.
Well, let me just summarize what the discussion was. The discussion was going from our current representation to what the state statutory minimum was. There didn't seem to be a lot of support to make a change there. And then the idea was floated, and I don't know who to give credit to that to, that maybe we allow an exception to the minimums where there are appointed members in the event of vacancies on commissions. So in the case of 7 members on a commission, or in this case, I'm going to use 9. The maximum from one party is 6. Rich, the statutory minimums, you had given us that information in some of our minutes from way back.
For a 9-member commission, it's still 6. The right-hand column in the state is 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6.
Okay, so in a few cases, commissions with 7 and 5
Yeah,
would have
exactly.
the ability to operate with 1 less than the required minimum. One would allow to go to a higher number than the maximum from one party. Any desire to change this, or we just live with it the way it is? Any thoughts from?
Yeah, I thought it was I thought it was pretty clear that we had divided it between elected officials and appointed, and that the state statutory limits could be applied to the appointed commissions and committees.
Is everyone, that's where I don't remember the extent of the discussion, to be candid. I appreciate that, Paul. I just plain don't remember. I'm fine with it either way, either staying as we are or going to the statutory minimum where to govern appointed members if necessary. And we would just have Rich and Henry work out the wording of it so that it's very clear the way it's stated.
I could go with what Paul said, that we go with the statutory limits for the appointed and keep it the way it is for the elected positions. I wouldn't want to change for the elected positions at all.
Understood. And anyone else?
I don't want to change for either. And I think that where we have issues, so Paul even said that he actually changed publicly, that he changed his affiliation from Democrat to be on that board. And in my opinion, the Open Space Committee is a very one-sided committee. And it's an obviously one-sided committee. And I think that if we can keep things so that we have a better minority representation and we're hearing from everybody in town and not just a group of people who all share a common view, you'll have a more well-rounded committee. So I prefer to keep it how it is.
My concern with the whole minority representation thing really goes more to the staggered terms than whether it's 4 people or 3 people. Because it's the staggered terms that really creates weird results when you combine that with the minority representation rules. But I realize that apparently is a position that no one else shares except, well, actually, I don't know that, but I've basically given up the notion that I'm going to convince anybody about anything. So I'm just basically, I've become a lump.
Okay. Kate, I don't disagree with you, but I don't think that, quite frankly, I don't think we have the time to address it, given the schedule that we're on.
Well, so then we have to wait another 10 years. I'll be living in Rhode Island.
Okay. Yeah, I have the same concern about the off-year election, but at this point, I don't think we probably needed to have dug into this earlier to get
I
some
don't remember
resolution.
anybody
I
bringing up
thought we
the
already
off-year election.
changed, I thought we already decided we would change for the off year.
Yes, I think we have cleaned up the fact that people only take office in election years. We're not worrying about somebody being elected to take office a year hence.
Right, I
Yeah,
thought
we
we
did
were,
do that, but that's a different issue from, every time there's a town election, only half or about half of the seats are up for reelection. And depending on how many of them are currently held by one party or another, the minority representation rules just compound the difficulty of dealing with how many people you can run and how many people could possibly win. And I know no one believes me, but the number of people you can run has a big impact on how many can win. And
And
that's
vice
where I think it's a
versa.
problem.
You were saying, Rich?
And vice versa. I mean, how many people can win will determine how many people are willing to run too.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think there's the will to change that part of it at this point. Do you mind if we just pass through this?
No,
I
I
don't-
don't mind if we do anything. I've completely, as I said, I'm just a lump. I'm just going to
No, I'm
mute
listening.
myself because it's clear to me that there aren't enough people who agree with me about the things I think are important. And I might as well shut up.
Well, you know,
What?
even, Kate, even when I don't disagree with them, when I don't agree with somebody, I've learned a lot by listening. And so I want to hear what you have to say. I spoke with Carmen on the phone about the minority representation issue, and she gave me such an articulate perspective on it that it changed my perspective. So I'm always willing to listen. But
I realize that you are, and I appreciate it. And as I said, my issue with the minority representation really comes into play more with the insistence on having staggered terms. And I get that there is insufficient will, apparently based primarily on the concern that we might have an entirely new commission or board after a single election, which I think is about, as likely as snow in August, although after today, maybe we'll have snow in August.
let's move past this one.
That's what
okay?
it is, so.
Okay.
Kate, I have to agree, because trying to figure out who to run for what from the town committee level is a real pain in the butt to try to figure it all out. And I agree with you on that. So, but I think we've been doing it for a long time that way. And, even the Senate's done that way. You don't turn over the whole Senate. But, I do get it. I agree with you. It is difficult.
Rick, can we have a sensitive meeting on this, on minority representation and on appointed officials?
Yeah, so is everybody in agreement that we're, what's the perspective on changing the ability to be exempt from we're not exempt, but use the state statutory minimums for minority representation when on the basis of appointed people? I
I'm
would be
opposed to it.
okay. Let's just go down. So Paul, in favor, opposed?
I am in favor.
Okay, Paul's in favor. Lisa?
Opposed.
Let's see, we've got Kate.
So can I ask a question? Because I'm not really sure I understand what we're talking about. So let's say you have a board of 7 and one of the members of the minority of 3 disappears. And so now you have 4 people from the majority party and 2 people from the minority party and 1 person to be appointed. And the idea is that, well, that person that wouldn't have to be a member of the minority party, because you could have as many as 5 people from one party on that board.
Oh, that's a good question.
That's what we're
Could be an
talking about, is it
independent.
not? Carmen,
No,
Could be an independent.
well, it could be, but what I'm saying is it could be anybody. That's what the proposal is on the table.
No,
it
the
would-
proposal on the table would be, you would go, there's 2 charts. The column 2 chart numbers, and why don't people write these numbers down instead of 2 through 6? Rich, can you read those numbers again?
If it's a column that, if it's column 3, that's the state statute, it's 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6.
Right, and that's why I picked a board of 7.
Right.
And we're presuming that, one of the minority members is gone. And this rule would allow you to appoint anybody you want, even if it resulted in 5 members from one party.
That's,
Yeah,
That's the proposal, right?
you
Yeah.
could do that whether they're resigned or not. It would happen that way if it was a law.
If it was what?
They could appoint it that way initially.
No,
No, not at all, Henry. What we're saying is when there's a vacancy that needs to be appointed, we can use the statutory minimum, maximum numbers for representation as opposed to the town numbers. So in 2 instances, the town numbers differ by 1 person from what the state statutory minimums are. It would just give more flexibility for appointing members to a commission where there's a vacancy.
I see. I misunderstood it. I was assuming that it should be applicable whether, right from the get-go when they're first appointed. We're changing the ratio for that agency under any circumstance. I'm not sure that we can change it just for the concept of filling a vacancy.
yeah,
Because-
yeah.
So if a Democrat leaves, we're saying you can't necessarily appoint another Democrat, it can be anybody?
It depends on what the ratio is. If the Democrats are in the majority,
Yeah,
you can and a Democrat leaves, you can certainly appoint a Republican. There's no reason you can't change the majority. But if a minority person leaves of one party or the other, you would have to replace it with another person in that party. I think the ratio, whatever the ratio is, should be in effect no matter when they're being put on, whether they're being appointed after the election of a new first selectman or whether they're being appointed to fill a midterm vacancy. Generally speaking, the appointments are probably the same because many people just get reappointed to an appointed commission. And so you really only are filling vacancies when people leave.
You
So
know,
Henry,
The premise that this whole discussion started with a few meetings ago was we have boards or commissions that have vacancies that are not able to be filled. I
Right.
think we've gone off of that problem that we were trying to solve. I would support appointed commissions being allowed to go down to the state minimum when we cannot fill a vacancy under the current means. To me, that's a great exception. That directly addresses this whole conversation. We seem to be getting off of the original problem. It's almost like we're solving a new problem here with the discussions. So if it's
I
to-
agree
if
with
it's
you,
to
Mark.
fill-
creating
if it's
one.
to fill a position that cannot be filled otherwise, then I'm in favor of going down to the minimum. But otherwise, I don't see a reason to change.
I agree with you.
yeah, that makes sense. I do agree with that too, because that
I
was
agree
the
with that.
purpose behind this.
That's the point that
Thank
I
you.
agree with. Okay, so we've got Mark, Judy,
Okay,
Kate.
I can agree with that.
Rich, is that
Lisa?
okay under statute?
Well, I mean, as long as you don't go past the statutory minimum, anything is okay. I'm
Okay.
just trying to think how it works in real life. You know,
Word it.
how do you determine that the vacancy can't be filled by someone, you know, pick a number. You have 4 Democrats on the Open Space Committee and one of the Republicans resigns. You can't find another Republican. You can't find an unaffiliated. How long does the seat have to be open? You
I
know,
thought we
before-
left 90 days for that.
And we might use language such as absent a recommendation from the minority party. Just leave it open-ended like that. So it's just guidance as a way to operate.
You won't put time frame on that, like
Yeah.
absent a
Yeah.
recommendation within 90 days or something.
Yeah, time frame seems appropriate.
Right.
Yes, I
Just-
agree.
You've got 3
I'm good with
months
that.
to give us a name, otherwise we're gonna fill it.
There you go.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Sounds fair.
Let's just, it's wordsmithing from this point forward. I think we're in near universal agreement on this.
Yep.
Sounds that
Okay.
way.
Let's move past this.
Good.
And that's just for appointed agencies?
Yes.
Yes.
It is? I thought it was anytime there's a
No.
vacancy that can't be filled.
No, this would also be for elected office. Like, for example, if we have a vacancy on planning and zoning and nobody wants it from the minority party, as opposed to leaving it vacant, I'd rather be able to go to statutory minimums.
I agree.
Okay, is everyone
you're
good with
gonna-
that?
You're gonna start having a lot of vacancies as thank goodness for Art, one of our few younger members, but most of us are getting to the retirement age that are
We
on
are.
all your boards and
We're
committees.
already there.
So we got to get the younger generation interested in government.
They're coming.
Well, that's true. But actually, Mark, there's more time to serve on these things when you're retired.
Yeah,
That's true.
This
You're right.
is
Kate.
true.
That's exactly why I'm not on any of these things, because I'm not retired.
Gotcha.
and we're gonna miss you, Kate, when you leave.
You know, I
If we're-
gotta say that if a party can't fill that seat in the time, in 90 days, you know, there you go. It's on them. They have the 90 days to stay in there. So
Right. I think that gives people the opportunity, and if they can't put up, they got to shut up.
Right.
I'll give you that.
Well,
agree.
I guess to play devil's advocate, what if there's a majority on the Board of Selectmen of one party and they refuse to appoint a member of the other party to fill the vacancy for 90 days just so that they can take the spot?
Well, it's not up to the Board of Selectmen to propose somebody. It's up to the town committee.
Right.
The Board of Selectmen has to accept it.
Yeah, the board is, they have to vote for on it. Yeah.
Well, they have to vote.
But it's not the voting within the 90 days, it's the minority party making a recommendation within 90 days. If they make the recommendation within 90 days, the selectmen may still refuse to put that person on, but that doesn't give them the right to put a Democrat on, then they've got to go find another Republican.
Does the clock start over again?
I'll let you write that one, Henry.
Okay.
Well,
I think I'm just gonna leave this with
Yeah.
bad idea, I told you so.
Do you want the clock to start over again?
No.
No, I would say that then we're left in a quandary like we are if the budget doesn't get passed after the second time around. The fathers have to, and the mothers of the town have to figure out how to work it out.
mhm.
How many times has this actually happened?
Never.
Well,
You're
no, it
spending a
has-
lot of time on the never.
Apparently, it has happened that a position was not getting filled because there wasn't anybody who wanted
Right.
to take it. That's the point.
If we're ready to move on, 6.4 is the next one to look at. There's a comment here that Rich has made about the fact that ties only need to be resolved for elective office and not referendums by statute. I'm assuming that if a referendum ends in a tie, the referendum fails to pass.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And so if everybody's in agreement with that, we need to do some wordsmithing in 6.4 to make that happen.
Sounds
I'm
right.
Everyone good with that?
Mhm.
And then there's another comment in the last sentence, and I think that it's a good comment. And there was the sentence was challenged because it was hard to make sense what it means. And I think again with a little wordsmithing, we can preserve the meaning but make it a little clearer.
I'm fine with that. Everyone good? Okay, let's keep moving.
Okay, 7.1 would be where I would want to stop next unless somebody has something else in 6.5. And let's see, maybe already. Where it's highlighted the word year, we were going to review that. I think it should say, rather than say the ensuing year, it should say the next 12 months, because the ensuing year from January is not clear whether it means that same year or it means starting the following January. So
All
if we say the next 12 months, it makes it clear. If people are happy with that, the next one would be in 7.2. And the question here is what does qualification means? If somebody's elected to office, they start on the third Monday after election and qualification. Rich, I don't know whether you can add anything to this, but I'm assuming that qualification means meet any statutory requirements and take the oath of office. And if that's the case, I think we should probably add somewhere in the charter what qualification means, because otherwise it's not clear.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that that's what it means.
So if it was satisfactory with others, we'll just add a sentence to the end of 7.2 to specify what qualification means. The word qualification shows up twice in the charter in this context and 2 other times in another context. I checked it out, but if we put it here, it'll make it clear.
So it might say something like subject to qualification to legally hold office.
Yeah,
Per
qualification.
Connecticut General Statutes.
Statutes and oath of office.
Okay. All right. I'm good with that. Everybody?
Yep.
Good clarification. Thank you, Henry.
Okay, on page 20, F1 is what I have here is the next one.
Okay. Zoning Board of Appeals.
I think this does now works as written here, so that they are staggered, but are on the town elections. Rich, I asked you for what your comment was, and you lead the discussion on this.
I think we had talked about revising this so that people wouldn't be elected to take office a year in the future. And a few months ago, I provided, kind of sample language showing how that would transition through the next couple of elections to be accomplished. But I don't recall there being any conclusion on that discussion.
as it stands now, our zoning board of appeals members, it says that they're elected at the biennial election. A member for every, for 4 years to succeed each member whose term is set to expire shortly after the election, meaning I would assume at the end of that year. So this would seem that they would only be taking office in election years or as a result of the election, which, but not electing somebody to take office a year hence. But maybe that's my misconception, because the zoning board of appeals people, as they're currently elected, are staggered over a 4-year period.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the last couple of elections, and both planning and zoning and ZBA were electing people for a year in the future.
There's one position, I believe, on each commission that's
Yeah.
selected that way. It's confusing as all get up, but I don't see a pressing need to change it now.
I just find it hard. Sometimes you leave somebody out, because you didn't see that they needed to be on the ballot.
Well, if Rich can draft it, why wouldn't we change it?
Rich, you're comfortable with drafting something to change it both on planning and zoning and ZBA?
Yeah, I think I did that a couple months ago.
Okay.
He did present it, and I remember reviewing it, and it worked. So we could easily plug that in. Everybody will have another look at it before it's finally approved next week.
Okay.
So we can put that in there for.
Everybody in favor of that? I mean, from a
Yes.
practical standpoint, it's a mess to deal with.
And
When
that would go
somebody-
into effect for 2023, just, right? Because you can't affect this coming election, so it would be for 2023's election.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you need to have it kind of take effect over 2 terms, just so you don't shortchange anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
That is, I think we have universal agreement on that we want to pursue that for both planning and zoning and ZBA.
Yeah, why would we treat them differently?
Okay,
Yes, please.
thank you, Rich. Thank you, Henry.
Okay.
Let's get that done.
The next one I would like to stop at is 7.3H. Okay, this is the registrar of voters. And the question is, the way we've worded it, it's kind of difficult to understand what would happen if somebody was appointed or ran that wasn't from a majority party. And that's resolved by state statute, I found by looking into it, but to better create the track record of that, I would.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
I would say to better reflect the track record of the fact that the statute handles the issue of fringe parties, we should make reference to election in accordance with section 9-190 and 9-190A of the Connecticut General Statutes.
Henry,
Perfect.
whatever you say.
Yes. Yeah, otherwise a party of one would have a representation here.
Well, no, really, the way it works, and this is Connecticut, is that the 2 major parties are guaranteed the registrars. And the only way you get another one is if the candidate from that party gets more votes than the votes for one of the major parties.
Exactly, and that's what the statute says. But so that's why I would refer to both statutes, and I would take out the parenthetical there where it says one from each political party shall be so elected, because the statute handles that. In the wording that says one from each political party ignores the possibility that we could have, as Rich said, 3 registrars of electors in certain circumstances where we have a Democrat and a Republican and somebody else who got a majority of votes.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Everyone good with that?
Yeah.
I think everyone is. Thank you. What's up next?
7.5.
Okay, don't forget to face your screen, Henry.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the best thing to do here is to restore the words that were crossed out because which makes reference to a statute that does specify that the Board of Assessment Appeals has to be considered for compensation. It could be $0, but they have to be considered. So I would take the language back to the way it was worded and leave it that elective officers shall serve without compensation except for the following: first selectman and registrar of voters and members of the Board of Assessment Appeals.
I'm comfortable with that also.
Yep.
Everyone good with that?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
Next.
My next one is 8.6.
Henry or Rich, can I ask a question?
8.6. Sure.
Oh,
Are moderators elected or appointed?
They're appointed.
appointed.
Okay, so that gets them outside of this
Mhm.
compensation reg.
As a moderator, we could always choose to pay them if you wish.
I know.
8.6 is the next place I'd like to stop unless anybody has anything on the wording.
no,
Okay.
no one wants to debate about the burning official? Okay, I'm okay.
So we have a 7-member commission for for the Commission on Aging. And we also have someone being appointed the municipal agent for the elderly. We don't say whether the municipal agent for the elderly should serve on the commission and whether that person should be one of those 7 members or not. So I'm not sure how historically that's been handled, but it just raised questions that I thought could be answered in a sentence, but we need guidance.
Any
I'll give
thoughts?
an opinion. I think the Board of Selectmen should select the municipal agent for the elderly because it could be the senior center director.
They do select the person. But
The
then should
question
the
is whether
person,
they're a member of the agency, one of
don't
those
think-
7.
I don't think they should be because there might be, no one may be willing to be that agent on Kona. Right? And the Board of Selectmen have to find someone. So why would you confine it to just one committee?
well, we're not trying to confine it. We're trying to say so they don't work at cross purposes. And whether they should be an ex officio member of that Commission on the Aging or whether they have nothing to do with it. Are they 2 separate?
I don't mind them being part of the Commission on Aging. I just don't want it that it can only be on the Commission on Aging, the municipal agent. So they could be an ex officio member of the Commission on Aging.
Haven't they usually been the person that called them together and chaired that group?
I thought the municipal agent was normally the senior center director,
Yeah.
and
what
that's an
happened.
employee.
The initial one was Edith Prague.
Yeah. Okay.
Why don't we use the term may? It may be a member
Yes,
of the,
well, yes, I like that. Just so
Right.
to make it clear.
okay.
Well, what are you changing?
Well, we're just making clear how we say it. I would just add a sentence in here that says that they'll appoint the municipal agent, and we'll say something like the municipal agent can be one of the 7 members of the Commission on Aging, but need not be. But then the question is, if they're not, do you want to make them an ex officio 8 person on that committee?
The only reason I would like to have them not be a voting member is they wouldn't necessarily be a resident of town or even an elector.
right?
Right.
That's true, because if
Right.
it's
Good
the
point.
senior center director, they may not be.
So then they're ex officio, which
Right.
Bernadette does attend all the Kona meetings as the senior center director and the municipal agent.
So give us some guidance. I have no perspective on this.
Well, I would say to conform to reality as it exists now, we'll just say the municipal agent for the elderly shall be an ex officio member of the Commission on Aging if the person isn't a member of the Commission on Aging in the first place. We'll work the wording out on that, but that'll be basically what it says.
Everyone good with that?
Yep.
Okay, let's move on.
Uh,
One,
9.2,
Can we just,
8.17 would be the next one I have.
I have just one question on 8.15. And I had brought this up earlier when we went through this section before, but is there any problem with changing open space to a commission? This has been a thorn in Ann Dunnick's side for years. Can we just change it from a committee to a commission? Because a committee is usually a subdivision of a commission.
We certainly can do that. Our definition for the town charter is the important thing is you're an agency, and it says that every committee and every commission is an agency. So we could certainly change this to be commission. There's no problem with that. It's semantics.
Yeah. Well, it would be greatly appreciated by at least one member.
I'm gonna
If that's
guess,
the case, can someone explain to me why we have both terms? Why do we have committees versus commissions if that's the case?
Probably historic drafting.
Sometimes it goes back to the statute that allows for it to be created, referring to it as either a commission or a committee.
Thank you.
I'm
Rich,
comfortable if, as long as it's just a semantic, it's a change.
If this comes from the statute, should we leave it committee or would it be problematic? Well, I'm going to suggest we leave it as is because committee is probably the word that's referred to in our town ordinance. That is very important with respect to how the open space fund is used. And if we change committee to commission here and don't have it in the ordinance, we're out of step.
So I'm gonna ask Mark, not Mark DeRozier, if this is described by town ordinance as a committee, let's leave it alone. If it's not defined that way and we have the flexibility to change it to commission, let's change it as a sign of respect for the work that they do. So can that be the resolution of that this evening?
That seems to make sense. The other thing I would point out is that to me, a committee ordinarily might be something that is more temporary, appointed for a specific purpose.
Exactly.
Whereas commissions are, around, without a particular time limit. Now that may not be what we mean in the charter, but ordinarily that would be kind of how I would distinguish between the two of them.
So let's go with commission if it doesn't conflict with the town ordinances. Okay?
Sounds good.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
9.2 is where I'd like to start next.
You had brought up 817.
Oh, 817, yes. There's a plural here, and I would just like to make it add a provision that says the Board of Selectmen has the capability of deciding the number of resident state troopers the town seeks.
I'm comfortable with that. Everyone good with that?
Yep.
Okay. 9 point, what is next?
9.2.
Rich, how are you doing? Am I making you dizzy?
Okay, now I'm stopping here at 9:2 because even though nothing's highlighted, because it's the first place it's used, you'll see that it talks about a 5-year plan for capital expenditures. Later on, there's a comment because we use a capitalized term, capital project, but it's not defined anywhere. And so I would propose we make reference here to a 5-year plan for capital projects and define capital projects on a generally accepted accounting principle type basis so that we know what capital projects are, and leave it to Rich or myself to just have a few words there so that we could make clear what that is, and so that when it's referred to later on in capitalized fashion, we know what it is.
Everyone good with that?
Mhm.
Yep, unanimous.
Okay, 9.5D.
Estimates,
The concept of reserve fund, which is also was part of the comment because it's used capitalized in another location, and we don't define what reserve fund is. And I would like wording here that indicates that the reserve fund is the balance fund that the town maintains of funds that have been raised in previous tax years, but for budgets that have not been expended.
Undesignated fund balance.
Yes, yes. And make it clear that it's it should be part of the budget. So I would look to Judy or FIPAC to help us do that, but I would like to quickly come up with something so we know what the reserve fund is.
you want to better define the reserve fund, where it comes from and how it's treated as we move forward.
It's a savings account.
Okay. All right, comfortable with that? Everyone
Right.
good?
Mhm.
The
Thank
next one is 9.15. I think we can just, this was my comment. I've looked at it again, and I felt that in the interest of time and where we were with the commission's guidance, I would just say, let's just drop the comment. We don't need to deal with that.
Okay. Next up,
9.18. I had proposed changing citizens to qualified voters, and we put it up for review. I've looked at it. I don't think we should change it to qualified voters. I don't think we should use the word citizens. I think we should use the word residents, which is what we use in Article 1 when we refer to people generally in town. So they don't have to be taxpayers, but it's not clear what a citizen of the town is, but it's clear whether you reside in town. So I would change the word citizens to residents.
that makes
Yeah, I
sense.
mean,
Makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the context here is, you know, an emergency threatening someone's life. It doesn't have to be a registered voter whose life is being threatened.
Mm.
No, that would be kind of absurd.
Well, then it
Yes.
doesn't have to be even a
That's why I
citizen.
suggested we review it.
Right, you're right. Resident is,
Yeah.
resident is a much better term to use there.
Yeah,
Okay, we're all good on that?
yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. That was the last comment.
wow.
We
go
got
through it
through
again?
it? Yeah.
Oh, and 8:01. Wow, excellent.
All of this makes me
Hey, it
really
is
glad.
8:01.
I feel for the voters who are going to be asked to review this and decide how to vote on it. Because, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on here. It won't necessarily, I mean, does somebody write up an explanation of this? And I don't want to be that person.
Rich, isn't when it comes out of this committee to go to the selectmen, do we write that explanation for them to consider next week, or is that the writing that comes from the selectmen to the voters?
Well, I mean, I think it would be reasonable to have a short kind of bullet point explanation from this commission to the Board of Selectmen, you know, with the transmittal of the revised draft. You know, and the long and short of it is that there are a pretty finite number of things that are substantive changes in here.
True.
Yes.
I just somehow summarize the changes.
Yeah, I think we can do that, and we'll have that for the next meeting, and it'll lump a lot of them into saying that they are stylistic, grammatical, or updating of references, and then focus on the ones that are the you know, the half dozen that may have some substance to them.
Yeah.
That's
Henry,
what we've done.
I really want to recognize and thank you for your very thoughtful
my.
and detailed editing here.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
Yeah.
Henry. I think you understand, we all deeply appreciate, and Rich, all the work that the two of you have done.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
it has helped move it along for sure.
Yeah.
Rick, can I add one last edit?
Well, there are a couple things at the very end that we didn't get to here.
Right, it's Article 3 of the Board of Selectmen, Section 3.3, Duties B. So it's just a real minor change, but we're listing all the full-time positions that the Board of Selectmen have to have authority for hiring and setting their job descriptions.
3.3B.
No, it's an email at the very, very end of the packet.
Oh, right. I saw that.
And I'll just narrate it while Rick tries to
it's on
find it.
Page 93 of 100. No.
Mhm.
There it is.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at that section, sanitarian is no longer hired by the town. That's a position part of Eastern Highland Health District. So sanitarian would have to be eliminated from one of the employees that the Board of Selectmen are in charge of. And then we'd have to add some positions. And I've made a list of the positions that were not in 10 years ago that did not exist. Such as the assistant to the rec director, the facilities manager, the facilities maintainer. I can't remember what other ones.
Well, they're listed right here: emergency management director, fire marshal, building official, facilities manager, facilities maintainer, animal control officer, and assistant recreation director.
Right, so that would then make that a complete list of positions as of today.
Do we want the list of positions constrained by the charter? Or do we want it to be able to be, and any other personnel needed to operate the town in an efficient, appropriate manner? So that covers the fact that these other positions were added in the past, but you want to just add them, the verbiage of them now, just for correctness?
And maybe to account and accommodate the concept that there could be future ones, because we do give them authority to make hire other people. We could say including but not limited to, and then list these out.
Right.
That would be, that's great.
Now,
So make those changes, adding all the current positions, deleting sanitarian. I mean, we might get to a point in 5 years where we do have a sanitarian. Unlikely, but that's a theoretical possibility.
What if you stopped it right in the middle of that paragraph? don't list them.
Right, you could do that. The way we do it right now, just so everybody knows, is the Board of Selectmen are in charge of all full-time positions. I recommend, and they do the final hiring. But the Board of Selectmen have given me, as a town administrator, to hire and manage part-time positions. Because those positions tend to come and go a lot quicker. But that's just, this Board of Selectmen have decided that they did not want part-time positions coming before them, for me to just handle it.
Yeah,
Which is all you
even
see
having this
through-
list, like having this list in the charter as opposed to, do we want it here?
I know.
I think the main reason it was here was probably because at the time we were taking the town clerk and the tax collector maybe from the point of being elected to being the concept of appointed. And so there was a provision here so that they were at least accounted for. I don't know that there's the need to have them referenced in the charter because they are town employees. We do need to reference, as Carmen was suggesting, the first sentence, that they're in charge of the personnel policies, job descriptions, and for all hired positions.
Well, then I think your suggestion of a list and including but not limited to is probably the best way to approach this.
Why list them at all?
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with Carmen. I think less is more here.
and I agree with Kate. There we go.
Hey,
Hey,
We
Kate,
agree.
you and I agree.
Okay,
So
So-
how would we word it if we weren't just,
Just take it off.
Hiring and dismissal of
Personnel.
full-time and part-time personnel
Yeah, period.
needed to operate the town in an efficient and appropriate manner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do need to exempt the Board of Ed, just to be
Yes.
clear.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Right, right.
Okay, well done.
yes, is there clarity of how we want to change that? I think it's pretty clear. What you suggested, Rich, is perfect.
Okay.
That'd be
Everyone
fine.
good with that?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Anything else, Mark?
no, sir.
Next page.
Okay. I don't think there's any thought that we've discussed. This is from Linda.
We haven't talked about making them appointed.
Right, this is just what Linda observed Bolton
Right.
was doing and threw it out there as a point of discussion.
right?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of keeping planning and zoning. I mean, tell me if I have a conflict, but yeah, I to
I
change.
think it's an
structure.
important thing. I agree with you.
Yeah,
It's a quasi legislative body and judicial body, and as such is something that would seem to lend itself to the town's residents or electors wanting to be involved in selecting if they determine that they're not doing their job right.
We're
Yeah, I mean,
clear
it just,
not to serve the Board of Selectmen. We're there to serve the public.
Yes, exactly. Not the Board of
That's where our
Selectmen.
charge comes from. And I think that I don't see, from my perspective, I don't see any reason to want to change that. Everyone in agreement to leave it as is?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Thank you for this info though, Linda. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting because, every charter revision commission is different.
It is
Well,
interesting. It's good to know what other towns are doing.
Well, you know, it's
Yeah, I mean,
ironically, my first term on a planning and zoning commission was in Wyndham. I was 19 years old. That was 46 years ago. My dad said, "You're on the planning and zoning commission." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Just go and go." He said, "Shut up and don't make a fool of yourself."
That's a good recommendation.
But I fell in
Yeah.
love with the process, so here we are.
Yeah, no, it is interesting because I think it's pretty evenly split between towns in the state as to whether planning and zoning and some of the other land use ones are elected and appointed. And, you know, it comes down to people complaining that appointed commissions aren't listening to the people, and people complain that elected commissions tend to, you know, bow to political pressure too easily. But it's all a case of, you know, what the culture in the town is and what people are used to. I've been on our commission that's appointed for 30 years, and I think, you know, there are people that would never have agreed to be on it if they had to run for election who do a great job. And then there are others that, you know, are just kind of boneheads that shouldn't have been appointed or elected. So it's all what you're used to and whether it works.
I agree.
I think, you know, I can't, from my perspective, it works really well the way it's going, the way we've administered this over the years. So no change here.
Okay.
Okay, that's the end of what we have to discuss this evening.
Woo, we're done.
Let's, so there's some work to be done for our next meeting, but I'm thrilled we got through this whole thing. Henry, thank you for guiding us through this.
We're
Really,
going to endeavor to get the next draft out, plus the transmittal summary to the selectmen, so that it arrives to all of the members sometime Wednesday, hopefully Wednesday morning, so that everybody can have Wednesday evening to look at the final changes and the cover. And hopefully we have a very fast meeting on Thursday to approve things and go forward. But if anything needs to be tweaked, there'll be an opportunity to do that. And the next set of red lines will just show the changes that we've talked about tonight. All of the red lines and deletions that are marked here that we haven't discussed tonight, we will leave out. They will be in the draft that goes to the selectmen so that the selectmen can see all of the changes. But for purposes of making your review easier, we'll have a copy that just shows what we've talked about tonight.
and we won't be going through the whole document like we did this evening, unless someone expresses a desire to go do that or go to a specific point in it for review or discussion. So make some notes, please. And that said, so I'm going to make our next meeting will be 7 o'clock on the 29th of this month.
Rick, this is Linda.
Hi, Linda.
I just have one question for the attorneys. Does the table of contents have to be updated with the proposed revisions?
Yeah, we'll do that once all the page breaks get sorted out and so forth.
Because like over in section 1, 1.4, if you add the new 1.5, then 1.4 is not definitions anymore.
Right.
Not something else. So.
Okay.
Rick, it turns out I have to be at a family party in Maine next Thursday, so I'm going to miss that meeting.
Okay.
So when I don't show up, you'll know why.
And if you have any point that you want made at that meeting, please make sure I'm aware of it. I'll bring it up for you.
Great, thanks.
Yep, thank you. This has been, yes,
Rick, can I ask a question?
of course.
Are you going to, I assume when this goes to the town meeting, it will be an in-person town meeting?
We don't know that.
No,
It's
it has to
safe
be.
to assume that.
It has to be, yes.
Does it?
I-
Thank you.
We're not ready
It's not a
for,
town meeting, it's a public hearing.
Yeah, the last time around, this was on the ballot, and that's our goal, is to have it on the ballot this fall.
Oh, now a public hearing could be remote. We could do that. It's voting that becomes very hard through the computer.
But it also is hard to get a lot of participation from the community on a public hearing.
Right, we could do a Zoom meeting for the public hearing and do it just like we're running this meeting. I'm fine. I could handle that. I'm
Well,
sure Rick could too.
I think there are two things to keep in mind. One is this commission has to have a second public hearing before you send the draft to the selectmen. And that'll be likely before the executive orders expire. So you can do that by Zoom and remotely. But then when the Board of Selectmen get it, they can hold their own public hearing, which would probably be, into June. And that could be done in person.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Carmen.
Okay.
Okay.
The next draft will also restore some of the language that appears before the table of contents that we have eliminated from the current charter, just for ease of focusing in on the actual charter provisions.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we all set for this evening?
I think so.
Yes,
I'll
can I
make a
move that we
motion that-
adjourn?
Kate, did you make that motion?
I did.
And
I'll
I
second
second
it.
it.
I'll let Lisa second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed? Thank you very much. This is very,
Congratulations, everyone.
Well
Yeah.
done.
Thank you.
really appreciate, well,
Thanks again, Henry.
Yes.
Thank you.
give credit where credit's due.
Well, happy to have helped.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night,
night,
everyone.
Good night.
Right.
And this meeting was adjourned at 8:18. Good night, all.
Good night.
Right.